Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. I've got a really cool guy, great singer, songwriter, really good musician, very talented guy with Stoll Vaughan. Quickly, I want to just give a shout out to our mutual friend, Duane Betts. Duane, thanks for hooking us up. And also make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the show, audio and video. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and click on that bell. All righty. Stoll Vaughan, sorry about that. Originally hails from Kentucky. His career in music began in the late 1990s when he graduated Interlaken Arts Academy and went to Bloomington, Indiana to get involved at Echo Park Studios. Mike Wanchik, is that the right way to pronounce his name? Mike Wanchik was a producer and longtime guitarist for John Mellencamp. He took Stoll under his wing and he helped him develop the foundation for his songwriting. He was influenced by Bob Dylan, Townes Van Zandt, John Prine, Tom Waits, and he embarked on the journey of writing his own songs. By the mid-2000s, he released 2 solo albums, Hold On Through Sleep and Dreams, and Love Like a Mule. Both were in the top 10 on the Americana charts, and he's toured with the likes of John Mellencamp, John Fogerty, James McMurtry, Marty Stuart, and he opened for Def Leppard and Journey Cobill, just to name a few. He's also performed at Farm Aid, Telluride Bluegrass Festival, Master Musicians Festival, and the Woody Guthrie Folk Festival. I'm going to just interrupt this a second. You got to check this guy's music out. I am not someone that listens to a lot of singer-songwriter Americana stuff. I was glued to it. This guy is an incredible songwriter, man, and he's got a voice that will just like melt you, man. But he's a really good songwriter. He's got a lot of good stuff going on there. He then made his way to LA after stopping at Nashville, and his music has been featured in major motion pictures and television series such as True Blood, Friday Night Lights, Shameless, The Office, Treadstone, The Open Road, and he also composed music for David Lynch's Webby award-winning internet series Interview Project. He co-produced and co-wrote Sketches of American Music, which is the debut album by Duane Betts, who is on the show recently, of course, son of Dickey Betts. He co-wrote with the Allman Betts Band for their joint debut record, Down to the River, which debuted at #1 on the rock charts, as well as their follow-up album, Bless Your Heart, which is just came. Is it coming out yet? Is it come out yet, or is it on its way?
I think they pushed it a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Again, I got hip to him, but I never told him this, but when I listened to Duane stuff, some of the songs I really liked him, and I looked at it and I saw his name, Stoll Vaughan. I was like, who's this dude? And so I started looking him up then. I didn't want to like be creepy. That's why I didn't tell you that. No, I was like, because I was like, these are great songs. Stoll's 4th and most recent record, Desire Shape, was just released. It's very stripped down, basically Stoll playing guitar and singing. Lyrically, like I said, it's beautiful, man. And he sings like, not like, but it will remind you of Bob Dylan, except you could actually understand everything he's saying, like crystal clear, and it's just very moving stuff. So if you're into great lyrics with a lot of soul, you're going to dig this. He's continuing to do solo tours as well as opening for the Allman Betts Band on select dates. Plus, he's touring with the band. So once once the world opens up, whenever that is, or whatever that is, he'll be back out on the road. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Man, I appreciate it, Craig. I mean, it's an honor.
No, man.
700 of them you've done.
Mm-hmm.
That's a commitment. That says a lot about you.
It does. It says I really like talking to musicians. I do, man. It's very cool. I mean, this is great, man. Man, so what prompted you to go to Interlaken Arts Academy in Michigan? Because I think you were originally from Kentucky.
Yeah, so I mean, Interlaken's a high school up above Traverse City, and so places like Kentucky, they're not really creatively driven. Not that you can't be creative here; it's just that it's not in the culture.
Yeah.
And so when I was going in my senior year, and I went up there for an audition. And I just, I didn't know you could do music for a living. I just loved it so much. I just loved playing guitar. I loved writing instrumental songs. I loved Frank Zappa at the time. I loved, and there was a lot of, I was obsessed with it. And so I auditioned, and my guitar teacher, who became my guitar teacher, just, he kind of fell in love with the fact that I was writing songs. even though they weren't that good, but like instrumental songs. And so he really, I wasn't a classical player, but he kind of saw the value and had me come in and kind of taught me the basic building blocks
of songwriting.
Yeah, not songwriting so much as just music, theory, finger style. It was just, I was immersed, and when you're up there, I remember there was a girl that was like 14 years old playing marimbas, and she was going to Juilliard the next year because she was like a savant.
From
like,
14?
Yeah, 14. And it was just
God.
surrounded by this sort of stuff. And it's a utopia for creative kids. Now, I'm coming from Kentucky. I hate school anyway. So by the time I got there, I was like, what in the world? Did I just surround myself in like the nerd capital of the world? The more I immersed myself, the more I found out about Tom Waits, John Coltrane. You could just go down the list.
Sure.
And it just kind of established something in me that said, maybe this is a possibility. And what happened was I decided, I was out fishing with the creative writing teacher, this guy named Michael Delp, who's written some great books and great poetry. And I was debating on whether to come back there for a post-grad year so I could go to a conservatory, because that's kind of the route, you go Berkeley or or Indiana University or whatever, but you got to get in. And he said, Stoll, leave here, because he knew that I was into songwriting. He said, go have as many life experiences as you can have, and let that transform your creativity, and don't think about this place. And so I went down to Indiana, and that's how, so it was just my senior year, but it was kind of influential in the fact that it established me as believing, I believed the dream, but I didn't understand it. And it kind of gave me the foundation. And I'm still friends with all those. My guitar teacher now, I was talking to you, maybe doing some advertising on your podcast. He runs Strings by Mail. And
yeah, you said that.
Yeah, and then Michael Delp, the creative writing teacher, he's a huge fan of mine, and I didn't know that until years later. But now we're in communication, and my guitar teacher and I are really great friends, and I get to ask him questions of like, what did you see in me? You were probably my age when I showed up. So, it's like Marty Stuart, when I toured with him, it's like he would call everybody brother and uncle and cousin. And I asked him one day, I said, why do you do that? And he goes, because we're all part of this musical family. And so that was kind of my birth into, I think, the creative family,
So where did you live? Was it like a campus? Did you live like
it's a boarding school. Yeah, it's a boarding school. There's a camp up there that a lot of people know of. And there's an amphitheater they have on campus that, they have everybody go through there. It's famous. It's really famous in the classical world and in like dance and acting and theater. But so there's a camp, the summer camp, but you do the school year in the winter of Michigan, and that's where people who go there 4 years never quite adjust to the real world, because it's just it's like a utopia, It's too weird. And by the time you get out, the rest of the world does not operate with in that way. So so a lot of people go senior year, junior, senior year.
I think anytime, it's funny, I was my sons are 30 and almost 30 and 28, and we're texting earlier, and we used to play when they were little kids, we'd play Mortal Kombat and on the video game, and what the hell is that other one we used to play? It was just something else like that, Tekken.
Yeah.
And I said, man, things seem so much simpler then. And you don't, I didn't feel that way at the time. I'm sure I always felt stressed out. I had 2 little kids, hustle, money, blah, blah, blah. But you look back like you did, like you said, it's a utopia. I'm like, God, that was really nice and simple than just sitting there playing Tekken with my kids. And,
Yeah, totally. The graphics were so simple too.
Yeah. It's kind of
But if you go back then, I remember like Mortal Kombat being like, dude, these graphics are so sick. Like, you know?
I know. And every year they'd come out and be like, wow, I can't believe it's even better. And now it's like
64-bit. Yeah. You're like, oh my God.
I know. That's weird. All right. So Echo Park Studios, talk about what is that place and what made you get involved with them? And then also, what did you get out of that experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's so then, I mean, it's kind of a perfect transition because I left Interlaken, right? I graduated, I jumped in my car and I went down to it's in Bloomington, Indiana.
Okay.
Because Mike Wanchek, who kind of took me under his wing he's been with Mellencamp for 40 years, you know, he's been the guitar player, wrote all those big songs with them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and the Kentucky connection is, he was from Lexington.
Okay.
And my grandparents got divorced, and his mother married my grandfather. Then they divorced. My grandparents got back together. So
hold on. That's a lot of shit. Let me process.
Yeah. So it's like this. He was my uncle for about 4 years. I mean, both of like my grandparents were like pretty good alkies, you know. So it's like, but for probably 4 years, he was my uncle. I wasn't even born at the time. So afterwards, like they would come through when I was a kid. Mellencamp would come and play Rupp Arena, and we'd go and hang out. But nobody around here is like, you know, into music like that. It's not like these days when I go to a show and I'm backstage at like a, you know, My Morning Jacket concert. It was just kind of like, hey Mike, how are you doing? And nobody cared.
Yeah.
But so when I graduated in Interlaken, he was the only person that I knew that was in the music business.
Oh, okay.
And Mellencamp, I mean, he lives in Bloomington, and Mike had built a studio called Echo Park at the time that was, I didn't know this until I got there, it was one of the best kind of Midwest studios, doing a lot of records like Sun Volt and stuff like that out of there. So I went down and interned, and that's how I got introduced to like the real side of the music business. I didn't understand songwriting or anything at the time. And what happened was I was in there working in a studio, I got fired as an intern, but I joined a band that was recording in there, and they wanted a guitar player. They wanted to fire their guitar player, and they hired me. And so all of a sudden I was out on the road playing, you know, God, there's Shubas, and I mean, you go through the list, all the Midwest venues, and I was riding in the van, and we were listening to Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, and we were listening to the Rolling Stones, and these things that I never really engaged. I knew they existed, but I never engaged. And I realized that I did not want to be a guitar player for somebody, because songwriting, you get to say so much more when you're songwriting. So as I was riding in that van, I decided that I need to learn how to songwrite. At the time, I thought that it was easy. So I got back to Bloomington, and I went and I told Mike, I said, listen, man, let's go into the studio and make a record. You know, I want, you know, to make my own record. And he goes, do you have any songs? I said, no. He said, no. He said, we're not going to do that. You leave here and go write songs. And he introduced me to a couple of people to help kind of get the ball moving. And I left there, and I just kind of went around for about a year and a half writing songs and kind of really building that. And I brought a batch of songs back to him, and that's how so that's where Echo Park really played for me. Is it was this this place that kind of forced you into the real music business, because Mellencamp was making a record, you know, a bunch of records were being made in there that were all based on songs. I've learned about John Prine. I learned about all these things that kind of like, oh, there's a whole new world. This isn't just, you know, it was an introduction. So, and that's what it did for me. You know? So
Mike fired you as an intern, but you guys were still on good terms, I guess.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was just such a shitty intern. I mean, I didn't understand, you know, like I would wrap up cables, but I had no clue about recording studio. Like these days I understand a lot about recording studios because of that experience. And also I've gotten into it, like gear and stuff like that. But back then I didn't care, you know. I didn't know where I was going.
Sure.
And so, and Mike didn't fire me so much as a guy named Mike Stucker, who kind of ran the studio, was like, dude, I can't, you know, you're hanging out with the band too much. Like, you're just the worst.
Yeah.
But we're friends.
Hey, I'm an intern. How much money are you paying me, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got that attitude. I'm showing up at like 12. But you know, the truth is he ended up producing or engineering my records. And are you there?
Yeah.
I just had a phone call.
Oh, good, man.
And we've become great friends too. So
Cool.
It wasn't bad blood. I wasn't sitting around saying, fuck you, man. You know, I was just.
You're just young and inexperienced.
Yeah. And then I joined the band. I thought I was Keith Richards. You know, I'd sit there and, you know, play a Gibson Les Paul and just believe that I was awful. But I thought I was Keith Richards.
But at least you came to realize that and you did something about it, man. Some people are like, because their whole life like that, they don't even realize it. They just think they're great, right? That's scary. Couple of things. How old were you when you realized, when you're in that van and like the dime dropped and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to write songs. I don't want to be a guitar player.
Yeah, I was probably 20, 19, 20. I mean, just imagine, like, I didn't know about touring. I'd heard about touring. Everybody's heard about touring, but yeah, I just, you know, when you're working with a band, I mean, there's so many personalities and I think that maybe I'm more of I never really fit into, I never feel comfortable joining a genre or joining a team.
Yeah.
And maybe that's to my detriment at times, for sure. But I felt like you're dealing with so many personalities and you got lead singers and all these things play true. The drummer talks too much. The rhythm guitar player, which I was, is kind of second fiddle, but thinks he should be the lead. I mean, it's the Frank Zappa thing, you know, the lead guitar player hates the lead singer, but they have to work together. And the bass player is just an idiot, you know. And so all that was playing, and it was just I just felt like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a shit about your songs this much, where I'm having to like fight in the streets of Chicago about, you know, sound check. Like,
yeah.
But I maybe didn't process it that deep, but I just felt that. And so when I heard Blood on the Tracks and I heard John Prine, I think there was such a freedom there. It was like one singular voice.
Yeah.
That didn't matter what was around it. And I mean, because great songs can have bad production and still be great songs.
Yeah.
And I think that it just kind of like, it opened this world. And I remember because I was sleeping on the floor of the van in the back. And I remember hearing those records and just going, wow, I can do that. Lo and behold, I didn't know what it entailed, you know, but it just felt like that's where you just have so much more control, you know.
I find that fascinating that at 19 and 20, you came to such a pretty major conclusion. I give you a lot of credit for that. That's pretty
and a lot of
impressive.
People come through it even earlier, you know. A lot of people like who play bluegrass music or songwriters, you know, they might have grown up with Dylan and Prine and Townes Van Zandt and Hank Williams, and they might have grown up with this stuff. So they were already playing those songs, you know. They were playing. It would be weird, and I think that it also gets in the way of being able to be free with it if you learn it as the first thing you learn. Like the first thing I started learning was like Nirvana or blues, or just kind of like, you know, my palette was just wide open.
Right.
So when I found songwriting at that age, it didn't feel, it wasn't like a structure. It felt like every move that I made, whether it was on a C chord and I just did like a little pull off.
Yeah.
It was, whoa, that's amazing. So I'm grateful that I found it then and not earlier, because you find it earlier and you're just kind of like, it'd be like learning Bach or something like that. Like, and Interlaken was a great example. Is classical music, there's a lot of people that can play it really fast and really clean. And that's the whole operation. It's like clean, fast, perfect. But there's this little thing in there, which is soul, that you really, in classical, it's hard. It's like you honestly have to let it come through. And it doesn't it doesn't happen. There might be 15 violinists or piano players, and they're all great. They're all going to big schools, and only one is like, that dude, he's playing the same thing, but something's there that is soulful. And I think that's the gift of not over-learning any type of music.
Yes,
and,
I think so.
So
Yeah,
I'm grateful that I found it in kind of a way of like wanting freedom and not wanting to sing around the campfire. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I totally get what you're saying about, I always say about myself, I'm not employable for that saying. Yeah, I'm just not. Not like I'm not a difficult person, far from it. I'm just not employable. It's not my thing, you know? So I understand what you're saying about that, where, you know, you don't want to lock yourself. It's just, yeah, I totally get that.
And I think that means that you have faith that that to go out on the limb, whether you fail or succeed, is going to be fine. And I think a lot of people, whether how they grew up or whatever, it's like, just give me the paycheck, and okay, you know, I'll stay safe here and maybe be creative on the side, instead of like, I'm just going to be creative and see where it falls.
Yeah, I just want to, you know. I guess so. I'm just always of the mindset that somehow I'll pull something out, and most of the time so far, thank God I have. But you know, sometimes is, you know, you work for yourself long enough, you're gonna have shitty, scary times. That's just the way it works.
I had a whole studio artist development thing that was my plan. I mean, that's why I didn't put out a record for a while, because I thought that I had figured it out, and I had my old agent from Paradigm. He was like, had a studio on Pico and La Cienega. That's where I met Duane, though. I mean, so that was good. But yeah, I mean, it didn't work. I mean, but if you talked to me then, I would have told you how it was going to work.
Yeah.
You know? I would have said that this is the future. I'm going to make enough money. Then I'll get back to my music, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, so it's, but
I think you also have to have the mindset of, you definitely can't be afraid of failing. You know, like when I was younger, I wouldn't be afraid of failing, but when I failed, I took it more personal. Now I'm like, okay. And I think developing a bit of a faith helped me with that. I think now I'm like, okay, this wasn't meant to be, on to my next adventure.
Right.
Even if I don't know what that is at that moment, I'm just like more like, okay, I got to just figure this out, you know? But you can't be afraid of failing. That's for sure, man.
But I think that everybody's afraid of fail. I mean, it's like whenever I started writing a song or writing a record or whatever, there's still that feeling when you put it out. And it's a matter of not letting that just be. I don't think you can get rid of that. You know, I don't think you can get rid of like, man, I hope
because your failing is different than my failing, because your failing is based on acceptance of what you did by other. That's a different thing.
And I'm kind of speaking for the audience too. If somebody's listening saying, yeah, but man, I mean, I've got some great song ideas or whatever, but yeah, if I could only just get to the place of not being afraid. And what I'm saying is that you're not going to get there. Yeah. But when you do, you will get there in moments when, if you sit down and say, you know what, I'm just going to try. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to judge it. And then all of a sudden you're going to have a 2-hour window where you're not thinking about all the influences around you that affect you, like all the fears and insecurities. Yeah. You're going to have, and time becomes kind of elastic in a way. It becomes freeing. And whatever you get there, it doesn't matter if anybody ever hears it or not, because you had the experience and it's a success. Right. And then the more times you do that, and then then you're going to have to walk through that same fear, playing it in front of somebody. Maybe it's your wife, maybe it's, you know, your kid, maybe it's whomever, and you're going to be really scared, and you're going to get through that, and it's not going to be as bad, but you're going to have fumbled a little bit. And the more you kind of walk through that fear, doesn't go away, but the more you walk through it, the easier it becomes to do it. And I think that a lot of people, I think everybody has a great song in them. I really do. Like, I think the life experience, poetically speaking, I don't think songs need to be that complex. I think that the simpler, the better. And if it's something that inspires you, I think you have one there. You just have to get into the place where time kind of stands still, and you don't have all those thoughts of what you think it's supposed to be. And that's the hardest part. You know, for me, that's the hardest part.
Man, that was really kind of you to share that. You're like a super experienced and successful songwriter, and that was really nice of you to share that. Thank you, man. That was really cool.
No, I just think about the people out there that, because I get a lot of those questions, and there is a mystique to it. It's not, you'll hear different ideas. Like you can get online and say, well, you got to write every day. Yeah,
I was going to ask you. So how do you, I hate to sound so like clinical. How do you approach, or like, how do you discipline? What's your discipline to writing songs?
Well, I mean, it's all across the board, but it's not one thing. Now, like, since I've been in Kentucky, I go out, I meditate in the morning, and I'll just go write randomly in a notepad. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't have the capacity right now, or the bandwidth, to try to get all the way. I don't want to get all the way in, you know. I want to kind of, it's kind of like I'm trying to capture little butterflies and keep them alive as long as I can until I'm ready to try to put something down in a direction. So you put,
so you're saying is you're just looking for ideas right now.
Yeah, I'm writing a lot right now on, I kind of have this thought in my head of that stillness can be like madness, and stillness can be beauty, and so I'm kind of like walking with that, and just kind of like sitting outside and thinking about that. But 3 pages, leaving it. Not that any of it's gonna come through on a song or not, but it's part of it's just me kind of keeping the wheels turning.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you kind of build up a well of ideas in your head. You don't even know you have them, but you're building up your experience. That's why people's first records are so good, is because
they had this 20 years or 30 or 40 years of like, boom.
Yeah, exactly. And they were able to kind of like tap the well here and there and like get some killer tune. And but the well is always kind of filling up, and it's just hard because you don't want to go, it's emotional to get in to a song. Unless you're writing pop songs for country music, and literally that's you sitting around, and I've done this several times. You're sitting around with top writers, like 4 of you, and you're going, okay, what's the best redneck weekend? I don't know. And they'll say, out on the lake. You go, okay, what kind of truck? Ford or Chevy?
Oh my God, Chevy. It's that formulaic.
It's that formulaic, and then you're just trying to put those words together in a way that seem kind of goofy and creative. Yeah, and then you're coming up with a chorus like called Absolute Love, and then you finish it in literally 4 hours. It's like being a medic in the military. You don't even know the people, and everybody gets up and leaves, and you got a song that's set. You could send it to your mother, and she'd be like, "That is the greatest song you've ever written." So, I mean, so there's that level of writing, and I don't knock that. I actually do knock. I don't want to, I don't.
It's writing. I think it's a different. You're writing for a different reason. They're writing to accomplish it's like making pies.
Yeah, exactly.
You make the same pie because this is a good cherry pie. People dig it. right? You're
Right.
not making cherry pies. You're coming up with a new kind of pie that maybe somebody will like it, maybe someone won't, but you worked really hard to come up with the concept.
Exactly. Yeah. And the concepts of like love and forgiveness and all these sorts of things, I mean, they're pretty universal. So it's not like, live like we were dying or whatever, live like you're dying. That's a great song. I mean, you can't deny that. But then, boondocking, I mean, that's a shitty song. So, but we're back on the process before I go down. I mean, you can do it. You could do it that way. You could do it if that's the way you live your life and you're very analytical. You could do it where you wake up, write, and try to slowly or quickly edit to make something go together in a puzzle. Or you can allow emotions and experiences to build up and then slip into that place where you can get away from judging yourself and kind of investigate those feelings and those thoughts and find your own conclusion at that specific time and then put that into a song. And I think that's the way I do it is now if I'm writing for the Allman Betts guys, it's what I do is I pray before I go into a session. I say, I'm here to be of maximum service to the God of music or the spirit of inspiration, and help me guide if I need to, or if the energy is with somebody else, help me spark that, put oxygen on the fire, help me capture the basic structure. And so I'm more of like, I'm not going in there with like, you got to do this, I'm going in there with.
You're going in there of service.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If I don't, then I'll be in trouble. Because I'll be like, wait, why don't you like that idea? Or I'll slow down the process. It's not good,
Man, that's really good. You got a high level of awareness, man. Were you always like that?
No. Yeah. I think I've always had a sense of, that something's bigger. And I've always been very emotional and kind of, investigative that way. I think my parents are, at least my mother. And so, yeah, I don't think, but also I'm only talking through experience, meaning that, I find myself, maybe if I'm writing with somebody like the Allman Betts guys, I might find myself going, fuck, man, we're not getting shit. These guys need to focus. That's what I'm thinking when I wake up. And it's like, if I go into anything with that sort of attitude of like, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, that's not going to.
It's not going to give me anything,
Yeah. Even if it's correct.
Yeah. Even if it's like, they just played 3 nights in a row and everything's going great. And why do they need to sit down and find some emotional ballad in them? They just don't have the capacity at that moment. They have that capacity. And if I just continue to show up, I will catch that fish. It's a lot like David Lynch says, you just keep on fishing, and you're going to catch a bigger fish. And you'll catch shitty fish a couple of times, but you'll catch the big one,
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Thank you. That was very cool to explain it, how you, I think that's really cool that you go in there and like when you say that prayer of like, let me be of service, basically is what you're saying, tell me the right way to serve the situation. Yeah. Side note, you play with Kenny Vaughan?
No, I know Kenny Vaughan because of Marty Stuart. He's the greatest. He's a whack job.
He is a whack. His interview is one of the most popular interviews I've done. It's real, and there was zero coherence. I didn't even know it was. I think I asked him one question, and then it was like about an hour and 45 minutes later, he stopped. I don't even know what he talked about most of the time. It was like, and he was laying down, and he was, he's like a really sharp dressed dude most of the time. He's styling, and I didn't do anything on that interview except ask the one question, which probably was not answered, but an hour and 40, I could have left. An hour and 45 minutes later, it was like, okay. I'm like, hey, well, thank you for your time, Kenny. Well, one of the top, definitely one of the
best.
Incredible player, but one of the top 5 or 10 interviews.
He believes in aliens. He believes in the whole thing. Yeah,
interesting.
And he plays with Marty, but where we bonded was, so when I went down to write songs and stuff like that, I moved to Nashville. Or maybe it was after my first record, but I moved to Nashville because Mike said, yeah, you should go down there. I met this guy named Greg Gehring, and Greg Gehring is a whack job too, but maybe the greatest performer of old country music that it's like what we were talking about classical music. There's this one thing that happens that changes your whole spirit. Like out of 15 guys, there's one guy that does it. This guy could play you a Hank Williams song and you would get goosebumps. And so I bonded with this guy. He'd just come back from New York. He's a whack job. He's married. I shouldn't say whack job. I like him, but he's crazy. And he married this Russian girl. And I was driving around in a 72 Cadillac, because that's the car I had. He turned me on to Townes Van Zandt. He turned me on to all these things. But he changed my whole trajectory. Like I couldn't believe that this kind of music existed the way he was doing it. And when I saw, and why Kenny likes me is, I was like, dude, I love Greg Gehring. And not many people know of Greg Gehring, but Kenny said, Greg Gehring's the only dude that I will play with for free, no matter what, no matter when. And that says a lot.
He's an incredible, he's a stellar player. Kenny's an amazing.
So deep in the whole game.
Yeah, yeah.
And he understands it on a level that, and I felt like that what it did was it confirmed that whole year of me driving this guy around, dealing with kind of bipolarism and whatever it is.
Yeah.
He confirmed it, that it shifted me.
That's great.
Yeah.
If you saw me looking here and diverting my attention, I'll tell you why. Well, you mentioned you that's why your first albums are always so great. And I didn't get a chance to listen to the whole record, but I listened to the first 6 songs of your first record, Love Like a Mule. And like 4 of the first 6 songs are like 5-star songs for me. So I went back, I was like, let me see his theory. And while you were talking, and it's right, man. That's a great record that you put together. And to think it was your first album, that's a pretty cool thing, man.
Well, I mean, and John Prine. I mean, you look at him. I mean, Dylan did covers his first record, but what was it? Free Willin' was after that. I mean, that had, I think, Times They Are Changing. I mean, yeah, you're just kind of in a zone, and also you have all the history that you're just kind of pulling from. Then you get stuck with like, well, things shift. So
yeah.
But,
now
yeah.
No,
go ahead. No, please.
I was just going to say, now I understand why the second album, because you did this and it's almost unnatural. Like, okay, we need another album. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't know how it works at that point.
Yeah.
You haven't done it enough to know that you need to take time, or, and I believe that's why some of these great bands only last, so they don't last very long. I mean, the Stones haven't made a good record for a long time. So let's just go with them through, like 74 or something. Mm-hmm. And I think drugs have a lot to do with it. I think when you're really getting on fire like that, and you might be tapping into something, but also I think that it's just unsustainable, that sort of creative output.
When you're on drugs, you can't do anything.
Yeah. Look at the Allman Brothers. I mean, it's crazy. They were on, but there's a brief moment, like Pink Floyd, before what's his name went crazy. It just there are things that happen during that, but to sustain it over long periods is really difficult.
Very difficult. Yeah. Hey, now you answered my question. One of my questions is, did you always want to be a soloist, or did you ever think about having more of a band scenario? But you explained why, and I totally get it now. So what were some of your challenges early on as far as getting your stuff launched? You go in, you make this first record with Mike, after a year and a half of writing songs. What were some challenges at that point for you?
Yeah, the challenges, it's kind of the same challenges without the internet, you know, I mean, gosh, in the past 10 years, things have really shifted. I mean, there's people that are making a good living online. There's people that, there's artists like Chance the Rapper, or you can go down the list, The Weeknd. I'm talking about big artists that have proven this, not just Ani DeFranco or whatever her name is. So back then, my first record was recorded on tape, not because of out of a choice, like I'm going to go analog. It's because the Pro Tools system was $40,000 and took like an hour to do one edit of a vocal, you know. So I came into the music industry at a time where Americana really didn't stand for much at all, like it does now. Now there's a need.
Everything's Americana now. It's really funny, man. I mean, if you have like question, just put it in Americana.
Totally. And it wasn't like that. It was kind of, and I'm not feeling sorry for myself, but it's just, so I still had the same challenges where you were trying to get a record deal to really get out there. And you needed a booking agent, but a record deal, you needed a record deal to get a booking agent. You need a booking agent to get a record label. And so it was those challenges. And then I got put out with John Mellencamp and John Fogerty, and that, you know, that was awesome. Mike hooked that up, and that was awesome.
You opened for those?
Yeah, for this.
What was that like?
Oh, it was great. I mean, Fogerty had just gotten his publishing back, so he was happier than a clam.
Yeah.
And, he think he just bought a $20 million spread or something. And Bob Britt was his guitar player.
Yeah, I had Bob on the show. Great. I had Bob and Tom. Dude. Yeah, lovely guy.
Oh my God! I mean, that guy is such a pimp, and he played all those Strat sounds on Time Out of Mind. And then John Molo was on drums, which was awesome because I ended up using John Molo a lot later on in LA. And then Billy Burnett was on the other guitar. I mean, so his band was awesome. And,
you know, Bob's out with Dylan now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I mean, he's a perfect fit for that band. And,
he's a nice guy too, man.
The nicest and cool, and just a great player. Really so Fogerty was surrounded with these just like top players, but Fogerty likes to solo. So I think it was frustrating for them. But yes, so I got to be surrounded with that. I got to be surrounded with the Mellencamp world, which is, you know, I mean, it's just that those guys are on another level that it's pretty impressive, you know. I mean, meaning that the machine works in a way that's not sleeping in the back of your truck, you know, playing a coffee shop while they're making a latte. So it was good. I mean, it kind of, it was awesome. I mean, and a good thing about doing something like that or getting an article in a paper or something, you know, the people that are doubters, when you say, you know, oh, I'm opening for Mellencamp and Fogerty, it changes their whole perception of, so it kind of gives you a little bit of extra confidence.
Street cred. And that's for sure, man. Well, hey, look, you might have got in there because you knew somebody. They don't give a shit if you suck. Who the hell you know? If you didn't, if you weren't like able to do what they needed you to do, I don't care who you know. If you're his brother, you're Fogerty's brother, you're not opening for him, you know?
Exactly. And that kind of, it opened me up for a lot of things. Like I got the booking agent after that. But then right after that, the Def Leppard Journey tour showed up. And so I was out on the road for like 2 years almost, just riding on these buses with these guys, you know, like, and writing songs with Jonathan Cain and having him come up and play with me on stage. But the problem was I'm not like I am today, where I see like how I can, how opportunities need to just like, you need to build relationships. I was just like, hey, this is just what we're doing, you know? And I think that's why people like me too, is like, I'm just having a good time. Yeah. And so, but by the time that tour ended, I was back in Nashville, and I was like, I just didn't want to, like I didn't want to fight for the record labels or all that sort of stuff. And so I moved to California because I was getting all those placements and TV shows. And I was like, let's have a new experience.
Sure.
So I think your question is how did you promote it back then? And it was the same argument of promotion that everybody was having back then. Like, you got to get a lot of money, you got to get a radio guy, you got to get a record label. Just, it's a ton of a publicist. And
it's exhausting, man. I'm just listening to that. That is exhausting, because the problem is you only have this much energy, and
right.
It's not like once you get that person, in theory, they're supposed to do things so that you don't have to tap into that well.
Got it.
But that never happens, because those guys are sucking energy out of you too, because they have an agenda. Some of it is congruent with yours, but some of it is not congruent with yours.
Right.
And so you got a publicist sucking your energy, a promoter, a booking agent, a manager. That's like having 4 fucking kids.
Yeah, and none of them are really doing anything because you're not making the kind of money that maybe their other artists are making. So then you feel like second fiddle, and it just becomes this sort of like, and that's where I think a lot of musicians grind out, is because they get their hopes up so high and it just crushes them. So, I got a band, we just got signed. And it's like, yeah, well, that's just not even the beginning, my man. Like, from this point forward, whether you're in that band at the end of the year or 2 years and you're happy, is going to be, the chances of that is less than average. And so you don't realize what you're going up against. You finally get the published, and they'll tell you, man, this is great. Oh yeah, we're going to get this.
We're going to do a lot. I'll have you in all these magazines.
Exactly. The reason I have the publicists I have now is because they don't promise that sort of stuff.
Thank goodness.
Just respect it. It's like, because you can't guarantee those sorts of things. But you just have to be out on the road and build, and you have to be very smart. And I think over the last 10 years, people have gotten a lot smarter and a lot more efficient with independent music. It still doesn't pay like these, you're not going to get $250,000 like Mellencamp's going to get a night, but it's efficient, and there is a sustainability that's coming, through the internet and through, smaller venues and through support from vinyls and music placements. And, you kind of go down the list and writing songs for other people. You're instead of it being singly focused like it was back in the day, which is record deal, you're the artist.
Yeah, you play music.
Put a band together. Yeah.
You have to. Did you, were you able to build up like a following? Were you able to leverage that exposure?
So at the time when I was starting, it was MySpace, and Facebook wasn't really in existence. So to capture that audience, it would have been great, but like we were talking before, and I understand like some of your online businesses, because over the course of doing the music stuff, capturing emails, giving things away for free to build a relationship, that sort of the Seth Godin.
Seth Godin.
Yeah. Those sorts of thinkers weren't present. So
because when was your first record? 2006.
My first record is "Hold On Through Sleeping Dreams," and I said,
it's reversed. It says "Love Like a Mule" is 06, and
I don't know why it's
07.
So
I gotta listen to "Hold On Through Sleeping Dreams."
I think 05 was my first record, or 04. I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I think maybe 04, but so in 04 you didn't have, or in 05 you didn't have that sort of abilities. You didn't have the thinkers that were saying that. You had thinkers in that were saying things like, oh, things are going to shift, it's becoming digital. You had Napster that was coming along, but nobody in my realm was paying attention to it, because everybody was still saying record label. And it's still true. If you got a record label and you could really leverage that label, with that marketing budget, it does work. It still works. It's still better than doing it independent. But so to build the audience, it was kind of like getting an email list. It was very lazy.
They didn't really have that. For you to put a website together in 2004 probably would have been $5,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to $20 a month right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was great. And so you were very lazy on it. I think there were businesses in the world that were capitalizing. But the music industry is so slow that it wasn't a focus. And so by the time I finished my second record in that tour and I was moving to Los Angeles, my peers who were my age, maybe in like pop bands or whatever, they were leveraging that MySpace at the time and Facebook a little bit. You there? And
yeah.
So and so I saw that, but it was still so early in the game, and Napster was coming, and I was finding the money in the sink. I was finding, $20,000 here, $30,000, $5,000. And I was like, this is great. I'll just build these relationships. And then once
let me just qualify something. When Stoll said the sink, he means licensing.
Yeah. Taking a song, like All Right on my second record and putting it in a bar scene for True Blood, or taking a song, Meet You in the Middle, and putting it in the finale of The Office. Or
that's so cool. You had some big placements, man.
They were great.
Nice placements.
They were great, and it's all about relationships and people. That's the key with that sort of thing, is you just know music supervisors, and the longer you're around them, the more they're just like, man, I can't pay $250,000 for Willie Nelson, but Stoll has something, I bet, with a steel guitar. Let's call him up.
Right.
And then they call you up, and you just say, take it for whatever you think you can afford, and then you just build that relationship.
Sure.
But what happened was then I started to realize how the market had shifted. It still hadn't become solidified in the music industry, but it started really kind of bubbling up. There was real digital thinkers in the game, and so then you could start taking it seriously about building audiences. But then the music industry became confused. Everybody showed up saying you needed Facebook fans, and people were buying them, just like they were with everything, or paying for YouTube views. And so it's still confusing, you know? And because in order to build real audiences, you just have to slowly build them with authenticity,
Yes, you do. It's interesting you say that. Many years ago, I got invited to speak at a convention for rehabs out in what's that really hot place in California? Sorry, man. I'm
Palm Springs.
Yeah. It was like 115 degrees and then it was 120. I was like, what the hell? And people are like, oh, but it's not hot because it's not humid. Like, hell yeah, it's hot. What the hell are you talking about? Because I was thinking at the time of doing some work for rehab centers, as far as, doing some marketing and putting some programs of getting patients. The problem is I realized the people that run rehab centers are former addicts, and they're not business people. And I realized that and it's the same thing in the music industry. The people that run music companies, while musicians are very quick to adapt new music technology to their business.
Right.
From the business standpoint, they're basically musicians, either active or retired, or just, hobbyists. They don't adopt business things because they're musicians the same, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, as far as like, nobody really knows, the leadership who do you listen to, or, your PR guy says this, your label says this. Let me tell you, the worst marketing in the world is big label marketing. It's the most impersonal, stoic, cold, you couldn't get worse communication from anybody than a big market, a big label.
Yeah, and it's such a shotgun approach. When it works,
yes,
it works great. And, you know, one of the things that I love about Duane is he grew up, you know, I mean, there's a lot of things I love about Duane, but one of the things about this sort of thing that I like about Duane is that he grew up with his old man. So his old man thinks every motherfucker's out there to take from him. So to get to a point of trust with Duane took years.
That's
I'm talking
interesting.
about years. And I mean, we were friends, but it's just this sort of like, they just don't believe.
You weren't in the circle.
Yeah, you weren't in the circle. I mean, and they're the type that like, they don't give a shit. Like I think a great example is this: if they're playing a show and they're not feeling it, they might turn around and just look at their amp for like 2 songs straight. Like, who gives a shit? I don't give a fuck. And I love, you know, and that's the attitude that protects you, because, you know, Dickey probably got screwed so many times.
Oh God, I'm sure.
Wayne doesn't want to get screwed. And I remember when I had that artist development thing, my business partner, we got a lawyer and drew up a contract for Duane, to produce Duane. And, you know, he went nowhere. And it was just like, it came back from his manager, which is Dickey's manager, just redlined completely. And I'm so grateful that it turned out that way, because, but I was just being like, yeah, well, I got a business partner. He knows what he's talking about. And they're trying to take everything, you know. It's not fair, you know. It's really not fair in the music business. And I think musicians are now hip to that to some degree, but they also screw themselves on opportunities because of that, you know.
Yeah, they're very reluctant. It's almost like, look, man, I don't want to. That's not what I do, and I get it. But then you got to find someone that's really trustworthy that does that for you.
Right.
You know,
I mean,
not
like
some lawyer in a suit from New York. You know, maybe you're a lawyer around the corner or something like that.
But the email you write to send off to guest on your podcast, it is written for a musician to go, oh, cool. Yeah, I got it. You know, like it's.
But I've been writing ad copy for 22 years.
Yeah, but this one was directed towards a musician to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And because the truth is, you've done 700 of these. If you went to if you just tell somebody in regular business that you've done 700 and you have 100,000 subscribers in a month, they would be like, dude, that's amazing. A musician needs to be like coddled and
right.
You know, and like, don't worry, I'm not an asshole. You know, it's like, it's crazy that we're so. That's why we're so behind. That's why people take advantage of us on so many levels. You know.
Yeah, you know, and that's why I always want to talk to somebody first.
Yeah.
Because I realized in the beginning I did it because nobody knew who the hell I was, but then I said, man, inadvertently, that's the best thing I've ever done, because I get on the phone with someone and I say, hey, look, just to let you know, blah, 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 whatever I'm saying, you know, I want, and you have any questions, you feel comfortable. I want people to at least go in there thinking, okay, I know this guy's not an asshole. If the only thing I want them to think is he's not looking to screw me at all. If that's all they take away.
Right.
Even if they think I'm an asshole, but they know I'm not trying to screw them, we're good.
But that's what we're talking about. Everybody thinks they're going to get screwed. And it's like, it's detrimental to our progress at times, but we have been screwed.
No, you
on
have
so
to
many
be.
levels. Yeah.
You have. I've in the beginning, I would, like, I got early on, a lot of my interviews were in Nashville, and I would call a guy and he goes, look, I remember calling a musician, guitar player, plays for a fairly well-known artist. And I guess the artist is, he's a Christian, and that's kind of his platform. And he goes, I just want to let you know, man, I'm not going to talk about my artist. I said, I just want to let you know, I wouldn't know one thing about your artist, so we're good. Don't worry. I just learned his name last week. You know, we're fine. You're safe. Your artist is definitely safe. You know, but like, so that would never even cross my mind. Like, why would I ask you about him? If I want to know about him, it's my problem or business to figure out how to get to have a conversation with. Like, I wouldn't even think that'd be like saying, inviting someone, like going on a date with somebody and then like talking about their hot friend.
Right. No.
Like, so I don't even think like that. So, but yeah, I understand. Yeah. But that was very deliberate because I want to make sure that people are like, okay, let's go to step 2 with this guy. And then from step 2, go to step 3. If not, that's cool. Either way, no hassles, no pressure.
Right.
But yeah, it's funny that you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And that's all off the question of what I did to promote my first record. But, so I think that it is the Wild West now.
Yes.
And the more people like you that commit long-term, to get to 700, that's a long-term commitment.
I can't even think of that. I did that, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's crazy.
It kind of. In 3 years. In less than 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And even if it was in 5, 7, getting to 700, a lot of things in music don't last that long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the last man standing in the end of all of this. That's how you're successful in music, is you're just the last one standing. You don't come up with a better mousetrap.
That's a very, very good point. Yeah.
I mean, but in the rest of the business world, if you came up with a better mousetrap, shit would really pop off for you. But here it's, and maybe it's because, it's an established business, but it's not, because it gets shifted so much. You know who really crushes it are the CEOs of these damn big companies that sign deals with Spotify and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're just corporate guys that don't really, they're just trying to sell washing machines and CD players, so, but the music business is healthy. It's just that it's very top heavy.
I think, as I understand it, if I give an analogy, the companies like Spotify and iTunes, they're kind of like the health insurance companies. I was talking to a doctor friend of mine, man, this is 15 years ago, maybe 20. And he goes, Craig, the problem is the total amount of dollars being spent on healthcare is no different today than it was 25 years ago. The difference is, if I take $1, 20 years ago when I started in practice, I'd get 80 cents of that dollar spent. Now I get 12 cents of it, and the insurance company gets 88 cents. Ooh. And I look at like Spotify, they've done the same thing. They've taken the money and they metered distribution or and it's an unnecessary service in a sense, because things were running well before, but they somehow found a way to make it,
Well, and they also made those deals with the big guys, where the big guys are getting a lot bigger of a portion, and they're getting equity in the company, and so and that's why down the line, a guy like me, yes, I own the masters and the publishing of my record, but the spins and and what's getting kicked back is pennies.
Yeah, pennies. And I'll tell you something else about these platforms that people probably don't know. They're all going all out to accommodate and build platforms in many ways for podcasts, because free. Yeah. Because someone's paying $30 a month, whatever the hell you pay to listen to Spotify or iTunes. When they have a podcast on, there's no royalties.
Right.
So that's why they're doing all these platforms, and they're really going out of the way to build and accommodate and refer, because they don't want, if you're listening to podcasts all day, you're not costing them. It's free. They're literally, it's free. So they're getting paid. They're not paying, their expenses are zero on that.
Yeah. And totally. And to give Joe Rogan $100 million, I think he deserves it for sure.
Good for him, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. And he also gets the freedom. But they got that money. I mean, that's the smartest move for them to do. That says it all. It says exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Paying a guy $100 million.
It's kind of like the Howard Stern thing when he came over from Sirius. They just figured he's bringing over so many new listeners to the platform that they didn't have before. But you read the first thing I read is everybody's like trolling him. Oh, this is bullshit. He shouldn't do that. He doesn't care. He signed the deal. He's just, you don't want to listen? Okay.
Totally. And the other thing is that YouTube has the ability to cancel.
Right.
And Spotify is not going to cancel at $100 million.
No.
And he gets the freedom to say whatever he wants. I mean, you can't say shit right now. And we were talking about that on our first conversation. But, you know, if you say that the protests are this or that, I'm not even going to say anything, right? Because I'm not in a position. But you could be kicked off these platforms. And you know, so you have to protect. I mean, you've done 700 of these. You have to protect that sweat equity.
Yeah.
And when you're working through Google or these sorts of platforms, you could Facebook.
Oh, it could be yanked in a day.
Yeah.
Well, I notice now my reach on Facebook is not as good as it used to be because they want you to pay.
Amen. Yeah.
They want you to pay.
I get that. You know, I
totally
right?
get it. It's a free service, so they could do whatever they want.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Hey, let's talk about some of your music. I want to ask you about your third record. Is called The Conversation. I did listen to that one. Great record. I love Change, Weatherman, Own the World. In your bio, it said that the title, The Conversation, reflects being in a continual conversation regarding people, God, and the fears we carry around, and how much music interplays with everything emotionally and spiritually. It was good that I read. This is why I like you, because you're a deep cat. What was going on in your life at that time that prompted you to write around that topic, and what did you get out of doing that?
That's a great question. And when we were talking about songwriting, we were talking about kind of getting to that elastic space where time doesn't exist. I really solidified that idea then, because I just come out of trying to do the new Mousetrap with Cut Recordings, which would have been an artist development company. You know, I was sitting in LA. I decided that I was going to put all my eggs in the basket of developing a studio, getting a band together, finding artists, recording, writing, producing artists, producing content, and really kind of try to jump on the new music trend. And so that was what I spent, I think, 4.5 years really deep into. And when that failed, you know, when that didn't work, I was left.
Good catch.
Yeah. I was left with like kind of what we talked about is like, I want my own control. Like I don't, like, what do I do well? Write songs.
Yeah.
And so I was going to get married. I just started walking through all that insecurity and fear, because in getting to that place where time is elastic and writing songs and then kind of like setting them aside and not judging them and going back and editing them. And so it was a conversation with all those sorts of things. There's a song on there called Forgiveness, which is the first song that I wrote for the record. And it was kind of the gateway into kind of slipping into being able to have a concept and also make a record. So what I did, though, I thought, I'm going to record this all on my own in my house. And like I did with this last record. But what happened was, when you do that and you're not very present, in the sense that I was present with the songwriting, but I wasn't present with the recording. I was lazy. I would look back, I would listen back after, you know, a month, and I'd be like, well, I need to change that. But the layers of things that I had done since to get to that sort of bedrock would mean stripping it all away. And so I thought about it, and I reached out to Carl Bramel, who's in My Morning Jacket, guitar player for My Morning Jacket, great dude, longtime friend. I reached out to him, and he's a mentor, kind of like an older brother. And I sent him the songs. I said, hey, will you help me? He has a studio in Nashville. I said, will you help me produce this? And he said, yeah, that'd be great. And then I reached out to Mike Wanchek, because it'd been so long since I had
That's cool.
Done experience, and I wanted to have it again, where I'm so much more conscious. So and be behind the mic. Like back in the day when you're like 24, you're like behind the mic, you're like, yeah, I'm Bob Dylan, you know, like that. You literally think that. Like, yeah, man, I'm so cool. You're like, you're out of your mind. But that's just youth, right? But so I wanted to, and so we went to Mellencamp's studio, because Echo Park, he sold Echo Park. So we went to Mellencamp's studio, Mellencamp's band, kind of the same situation that I would do on my first records. And we made half the record there and mixed it all there. And so it's a conversation with not only myself and the spirit of the universe, but with like Carl, which is kind of a peer, and then my mentor as well. And it became this sort of, it lifted me up to step back into the game and gave me confidence. And like, I just really, I mean, especially going back and working with Mike, it was great. You know, I mean, it was like, I've gotten more press on this record, although I think that record is great too. But this record, I was able to then produce it on my own, you know.
Desire Shape.
Yeah, Desire Shape. So
very cool. So you got back in the game, man.
Yeah. So it was, it's a conversation of all that sort of stuff. And that's why it was definitely a spiritual thing for me. And the songs, I love them. Roll On, Forgiveness, Low Down, Change. I mean, I can go down the list. And
Change is a beautiful song, man. It's a really good song.
But that's because of the timing. That's the timing right now. You like that song so much. Roll On's better, okay? No,
all right, Dad. Awesome. Let's talk about Desire Shape. So when you put this together, what was going on in your life then, and were you trying to convey like any particular theme or message? It's a pretty naked record, man.
Yeah, I think that I wanted to do it on the conversation where I let the essence be the driving force, you know, meaning that by myself, it's like to capture the essence of me performing. That's a hard task. That's not just sometimes for an artist to just sit down in front of a mic and bam, that the demo is greater than anything else. And, but to make a record that way it takes a lot of focus and a lot of willingness to throw
balls.
Out. Yeah, a lot of balls, but just a lot. Yeah, I guess balls and also just the willingness to scrap. Like, this didn't work. Same song, same guitar, same microphone, but like we were talking about with the classical music, you can play it 15 times and one of them has that spirit, you know?
Right.
And so it was, the theme behind that is that I knew from the conversation that I was in the right vein. I was doing the right thing. And I wanted to continue that, but I wanted to strip it even further and represent it even deeper. Don't be hidden by drums or a guitar solo or whatever. It's just like,
it's very raw. It's you and a microphone on some of these songs, man, and a guitar or, you know,
or a piano or just a harmonica. And so that was the, you know, really kind of get down and be like, hey, I'm proud of exactly what I am. Like, and that's
good for you.
You know, yeah. And so that was the theme. The song themes, it's just kind of like a guy living his life, you know. I mean, I don't think there's it's very current with the times now. I mean, I can't stand being bombarded by the news and social media, and I know that you're off of all that stuff, but for a guy like me, it's just, so I wanted something that represented kind of a sweetness and wholeness that didn't come at you, and like, you know, because that's a lot of entertainment these days. It's just cut, or scream, or.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point, man. It's a lot of it is like, who could scream louder?
Right.
You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that anybody wants to hear, but that's just the MO of like a lot of people. Yeah,
and a lot of music too. It's like, how do we make it cooler? You know, what's current? And that's just not the way. It's not the way I think about it. So the themes, I was writing so much for the Allman Betts guys. I was writing for other people, I was just kind of looking at my own story. So like, I Put It Back Together, or Desires of Despair is written for a kid that died from opiates that I was trying to help out.
That's one of my favorite songs on the record.
Yeah, and I was thinking about his mother because I was helping him out, and I knew his mother lived in Detroit and wasn't very capable anyways. And I thought about her having to come out to California. So that song arrived. Weather in Kentucky, my brother was going through a divorce, and I'm out here. I was actually out here it was like I come back November, December. And so, yeah, it was a kind of a perfect song then. Entertained, just kind of talking about that social media stuff. So Righteous, I think So Righteous is much, it's like Change, but has a very kind of soft approach to that sort of concept of like, now's not the time to act so righteous, it's, but you can take it any way you want. And then, and then I have an instrumental on there that I've always wanted to do. And, like we talked about with Interlaken, that's what I was doing, went up there. But, it's Oklahoma. You love Oklahoma. A lot of people, and I think it's just, that song I wrote because in Oklahoma and Tulsa and the red dirt scene, there's songs like that, and they're played on guitar, and they're kind of like stark and like And I wrote it when I was up there for the Woody Guthrie Fest. I was like touring through there, and I was staying in an RV park, and it was just a shithole, And I was just like, I wrote that song, and when I recorded it, it just didn't. Doing it with the guitar felt like it could have been lost, and so. After I scrapped it a bunch of different times, I just used, it's called a Prophet 6, and it's a synthesizer. It's a really cool synthesizer, but, and I just played it as a pad, almost like an organ with the piano, and slowed it down so slow that it was even hard to sing. I was like, okay, here it comes. But then when I drove off, because we were touring, I would record, and then we'd go on the road and listen. I was like, this is the shit.
It's a great song, man.
I love that, like you, Duane, same thing. Duane wrote me the same email or text you wrote me, and a couple of other people have written just specifically about that. And I remember at first I thought people are probably going to hate this song.
That's funny.
It's too dark, but yeah. So it was kind of investigating how to get the essence of the songs,
I want to ask you about some of the songs on there. Desires of Despair.
Yeah.
The harmonica is great. It's like pretty haunting. Just trying to stay in front of the darkness we know.
Yeah.
What is that about, man? That's and then you have in the same song, Blame It on the Drugs, or you could blame it on my old man. If it's hard to look me in the eyes, that I understand. If my mama found me out here, her heart it could not bear to see the one you love in desires of despair. That's the one you just said about the kid.
Yeah, about the mother. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very deep, man.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have a kid that suffers like that, there's nothing you can do, right?
Right.
You can try to arrange the puzzle pieces. You can try to kind of checkmate it and get the person into rehab. And a lot of times they do go to rehab. But there's something that's going on. And the problem with these opiates is it can happen so quick.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that unlike alcoholism, where people drink over a course of 40 years and their liver gives out or their heart gives out, or they're so isolated by the way they lived, they're just kind of alone and die alone.
Yeah, you have a long time to break down as an alcoholic as opposed to opiates, man.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that it doesn't break down people quick either, but with opiates, the scary part is somebody gets sober, and they can be sober 6 months, a year, 3 years, and they go back out literally. And it's happened quite a few times with people I know. That night is their last night, because they either return to the same amount, or they get something that has fentanyl in it, or they just don't know. and they're all alone at that point too. And so, you know, and there's this sort of thing that goes with that verse of, you know, it's kind of like a guy at a gas station and the dog comes up and we're just trying to stay in front of the darkness that we know. I mean, we all have things that haunt us, you know,
Sure.
whether it's, and it doesn't have to be like, you know, when people say that, people are afraid like it's something that they've hidden in their memory, but it's just
Man,
a feeling.
if you live long enough, you got ghosts.
Yeah, you got ghosts, you got bad, low self-esteem that kind of just continues to pound. You've got judgments against yourself, against others. And maybe it's just that basic. And sometimes it's really dark. But, you know, what happens is that just keeps on playing its role until you can have some sort of spiritual experience or something that can take you out of that and give you a new perspective. And without that, most likely these young guys or old people or whatever will choose that desire of turning the switch off. And so, and it's although it's kind of stark, there is hope, you know, and I want it to be kind, because this kid that I wrote it for was a kind person. He might have needed more therapy, might have needed some things like that, but don't we all? And you know, he's probably 28 years old, you know?
Yeah, there's no, and he died.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, and he actually, I think his dad worked for Ford. And so I think he had some money, and he died in some, you know, he liked his apartment. He had nice stuff, but he died all alone in some nice apartment in West Hollywood.
Wow.
You know, at 28 years old. I mean, that's like, you could have done a lot of good. I mean, most people will probably be like, well, he was, you know, whoever knew him or just had brushes with him might be like, oh, he was just kind of like out there, or he can never get it, but it's just an accident most of the time.
Yeah.
Or it's intentional. And either way, it's
tragic, man, because it's like when you're using, it's just, you're not even a person, man. It's just,
no.
Yeah, you're possessed by, I don't mean spiritually possessed, but I mean, you're mentally.
You're possessed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true. You are possessed. You don't have control.
Yeah.
And you just keep on making that same choice. And people say, get your shit together, stop. And they don't understand that you don't have that choice until it all burns down, you die, or go to jail. Until you have a moment of clarity or a moment of reprieve to make a choice. But if you're doing it, you don't have a choice. If you're dope sick or you're, you know, shaken, you don't have a choice. And I think that, but I wrote it thinking about the mother. And also, I mean, God, LA has such a bad homeless problem that it's not like, you know, you could take it as a homeless.
I keep hearing that. Yeah, I keep hearing that.
It's crazy. I mean, but they're so out there. I mean, I'm moving to Kentucky, so we don't.
No homeless problem in Lexington?
No, a couple of opiate heads, and I'll give them $5, but in LA, it's like 100 deep, you know.
That's terrible, man.
Yeah.
It's funny. My wife is a realtor, and she's working with some people from LA, and they're like,
no.
I can't believe how cheap this is here. And I'm like, and it wasn't particularly like it. She said, she was telling me, I'm like, oh, because I said, where do they come from? She goes, LA. I said, that's why they think it's so cheap, because it wasn't like relative. It wasn't like a cheap house by a long shot.
No, if it was $550, they'll think that that's like a super steal. $550, $700.
Yeah, that's what. That was around there.
I mean, I just got a real estate agent, and went over to my house, and I mean, it's like from what it was when I bought it to what it is now. I mean, LA's been good to me.
Good for you,
because
man.
of that.
Good for you. Hey, you got to get something out of the place.
Yeah, totally. So I'll be able to hang out, just, you know, watch TV and eat bonbons for a little bit.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, you got like the B3 in the background and the piano, but especially the B3. That sounds great. Is that you?
Yeah. So that's, like I said, that's that. It's called a Prophet 6.
That's the pedal?
Yeah, well, it's a synthesizer. So in the 80s, there was a famous synthesizer called the Prophet 5, and then they remade it. The guy who made that remade it as the Prophet 6. So it sounds organic. It sounds like an organ. It doesn't sound like.
I'm shocked. So it's just a keyboard with this pedal.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and then the piano. And then a piano for the chorus parts or the instrumental part.
Yeah, you have piano on there too.
Yeah, but I've always been into I've always been into synthesize, and not that I'm making a Devo record,
EDM.
But, yeah,
your next record.
I love work
that's why you should produce, man, because you have all these things in your head.
Well, I produced the Duane record. Producing, it's fine. I could. Maybe when I get back here, I'll start a studio. I don't know, but I could. Yes, I mean, I could totally do that, and I've done it more than once. But yeah, I mean, listen, I'm just trying to get to Kentucky, man.
Dude, I hear you. Tell me about that song. The lyrics in there. You make fun of my religion. You find contempt in my ways, but in a moment of reflection, we all believe in funny things. I see it in your face, what I have come to be, refusing the change so that I don't have to leave. What's the backstory there, man? Another pretty deep song.
Well, that's so when you're in Oklahoma, when you're in Kentucky, you know, there's I was just looking around. I mean, because the chorus is you know, there'll be no tombstone on this grave for the town. So I'm just being kind at that point to the guy who has lived his life in a place like Oklahoma in the middle of nowhere, that's, you know, family has kind of disappeared, industry has disappeared, and everybody else is going, get it together. And, you know, he's saying, you know, I don't want, you know, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to, I've gone too far is really what he's saying at that stage.
Yeah.
And it goes, the Arkansas keeps rolling. You can hear that train whistle fade. This place is forgotten, no tombstone on his grave. And the Arkansas River goes through Oklahoma. So, you know, and just it's a kindness for the way I see it. You know, some people take it as like I'm preaching, or I'm the guy that that's saying that, you know, get over yourself. But I'm actually I saw it as a kindness. Like, yeah, why not live at that house? Don't mow your lawn. Keep the American flag out. Like, screw it, man. You can do whatever you want.
It's a good song, man. It's a really good song. Yeah, and that was the one I as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that was the first, I listened to this. That was my first exposure to you. And I really enjoyed Desires of Despair. But when I heard that one, I was like, I said, I got to text this dude. It was like moving as hell. Will of Man, that's acoustic guitar and harmonica. That's your instrumental there. Really pretty melody. I was curious, you know, instrumentals are so hard to name. Is there like a reason why you called it Will of Man?
Yeah, a great reason. I had a song called Will of Man, and I already made up the packaging for the record and had it printed. And when I would listen to the song Will of Man, I thought, this just doesn't work. I mean, it's a fine song, but when you're listening, you got Oklahoma coming in to entertain you. And I got home off the road, and I just started, because I hadn't mastered the music yet, and I just started doing an instrumental. It took me about a day and a half of just play. I was just playing like nonstop, and just this song and recording it and listening back, because it's hard, and I just committed, and so that's why it's called Will of Man. Because
it was all your will to get it done. Yeah, man, I get it.
Yeah, and also it's another song.
You know what? It's so hard. You know, I think the average person doesn't realize how difficult it is to go and make a record. You know, I mean, you know, when you said you spent all day playing, I know you mean you spent all day playing. You know, it's
Right.
not like, I relaxed. I went to the gym for a few hours and, I know you spent, that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
That's a commitment. It's a huge commitment.
Yeah. You gotta let everything else fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
When you make a record, everything else, you don't want to walk your dogs. It's like,
Yeah.
maybe I'll get to a point where I can cook dinner and, watch the 5 o'clock news and then wake up the next day. But when you're in it, you're deep in it.
Yeah.
You're just all consuming. And that's,
you need
it's
to
also
be.
beautiful.
You need to be.
Yeah.
Where in Kentucky did you grow up? In Lexington?
Lexington, yeah.
So you've returned home.
I have, man. I'm excited.
What was your childhood like growing up?
Oh, it was great. I mean, typical. Just, nothing special. I mean, I didn't, Lexington is just, it's a homey place. I mean, kids riding bikes, baseball, basketball. It's not anything. I'm really surprised when I come back here how wonderfully American it is, and how Southern it is too. And because when you live in California and you go all over and you think, gosh, man, I haven't seen a kid riding a bike in my neighborhood for 10 years, maybe like one kid with his nanny.
Yeah.
But here it's just kind of freedom. It's safe.
Yeah.
But I hated it. I wanted to leave. So to hear it from this perspective is completely different than the guy who's 20 years old saying everybody's an idiot, shit.
Yeah, of course.
That's who I was.
That's cool, man.
Fuck you, mom and dad, you idiots. You guys suck. Trying to control everything.
It's funny as a parent. Do you have kids?
No. I have
it's
dogs.
So funny as a parent when you have to listen to all that because it's like, it's really weird because you kind of expect it, but there's no frame of reference to draw on. And depending upon what's going on in your own life, like sometimes you can laugh at it and other times you want to like commit murder. Yeah, right. And it's just like, it's almost surreal. Like for me, it was like sometimes be surreal. Like I'd be out of body watching this. And I'd be like, what the fuck? I did not sign up for this, man, but it's too bad, you did actually, or I did, just didn't know it. Do you have any other side hustles going on? I know you have some licensing stuff. Any other non-music related?
Yeah, non-music related hustle would be, I was going to talk to you after I get we grow hemp here. So I've been kind of dealing with, but the market kind of fell out last year. So I've been working
the hemp
with
market?
that.
The hemp market?
Yeah, the CBD market just kind of, it dropped. I mean, they grew too much. And it was one of those kind of fast markets. Like 2 years ago, you're getting $45 a pound. And, that's really ridiculous. I mean, so everybody jumped in. And, but we have a good operation here. I mean, my dad and a couple partners, they have about 30 farmers growing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So, and then I got a guy out of Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, that's processing the oil. So I'm thinking about, I was selling the biomass to people that were processing the oil. It's legally allowed in Kentucky. It was kind of one of the first states. North Carolina's doing it. So I think the next phase for that is trying to figure out a product. And so that's why.
Yeah, man, I'll talk to you about that afterwards. Is weed legal in Kentucky?
No, weed's not. So, if it has more than 3% THC, they have to burn the crop. So it's kind of pretty strict.
Yeah, interesting. Is it legal medicinally?
Not yet. No. I mean, so like Oklahoma, they legalized it even more so than medicinally, and I think it's just spreading. It'll come this way, and a lot of people's game for being in hemp is getting into the marijuana game.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I mean, it's been going on in California for so many years.
Sure.
That they don't realize that they're already behind the eight ball. You know, I mean,
I don't know how like Florida, it's legal for medicinal, but I was out in California and I've been to Colorado. I don't know why the amount of money that's being made there. I don't know why any state wouldn't just be like, you know, it's amazing how much money is being made there.
Yeah. And so it's definitely going to come. I mean, you just get prepared. I mean, so a lot of people at first with the hemp thing were just kind of getting their licenses and you know, they were making a lot of money on hemp and CBD. Now that that's dropped out,
Right.
Most of them were just hanging around but I think CBD does have some really good properties. And, you know, if you're the last, it's like the music industry. If you're the last man standing, yeah, you could, you know, and you're focused on the side project that other people think that it's all marijuana. You know, instead of importing it from China, which is what's been happening.
Oh, is that what man, I got to believe that's an easy sell around now.
Yeah. At this stage, everything, I mean, you might even be able to do iPhone.
COVID free.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
interesting.
So it's interesting. We'll see how that plays out. I mean, I don't spend too much time obsessing on it. I mean, and also, you know, one of the things that I do, there's a website called reverb.com. And
yeah,
I've developed a lot of relationships with dealers, music instrument dealers that they use stuff. So like whether it's microphones, synthesizers, drum machines, preamps, guitars to some degree. I don't really mess with guitars because
dude, I got an SG waiting to get rid of right here.
Yeah, put it up there. Just pick your price. But so I got into that game. I was, you know, and buying, you know, I'll buy like $10,000, $5,000, $10,000 worth of a package deal. And
oh, okay. So you're getting wholesale prices below wholesale prices on used equipment and then flipping it.
Exactly.
Good for you, man.
So like a guitar pedal, you know, I mean,
yeah.
A lot of times like a Strymon guitar pedal, if you're buying it outright, you're going to be paying $250. But if you buy it in a package, you know, I mean, you got to sell all that other shit too.
Of course.
And Strymon, I don't really care about. I really care about microphones, nice microphones, nice recording equipment, because recording equipment is, you know, it takes a little while to sell, but it's not like guitars where somebody wants to play it. What's about the finish? What's the top? You know, what is it? Spruce? Is it Adirondack? Or it's like, who cares? You know, with recording equipment, it's more like, you know, that's what I want. Let me buy it. You know,
it's funny. I have this guitar up on that Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Yeah. This guy says, "Hey, I'm interested in your guitar. Is it available?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And he goes, "Is it the one with the nice pink case?" I didn't even respond. Like, that's not a normal fucking question. Like,
right.
Just go buy a pink case. Leave me alone. You know, I mean, like, who asked that question? I knew it was going to be some sort of scam.
Yeah.
Like, is that the normal?
Or asshole guitar players. I don't like selling drum equipment because drummers are they're such turds. They'll be like, "What's the cymbals weigh?" I'm like, motherfucker, I'm not going to go buy a scale just so I can sell this for $150. So they're the worst. I mean, the worst.
They're really particular about the very subtle nuances of equipment.
Yeah, and guitar players too. And, you know, so pedals are great because pedals sell themselves because of the hype or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you get an old Mutron pedal, like
you know what you're getting. It's not like, hey, well,
exactly.
Tell me about this SG. What's the neck like? What is the pickups? Just can't ask any question.
Exactly.
That's good. That's very smart.
Yeah. And now if you want to do that for your audience, you need to, I mean, you call up pawn shops. You know, I've got, now this is in LA. Now I'm moving back to Kentucky. So I don't know if this hustle will play, but in LA, I mean, Craigslist is ridiculous. And so, I mean, you just scour postings every day on Craigslist.
Oh, because you got a lot of musicians there hitting hard times and they're like,
exactly.
You know, need liquidation sale every day, probably.
Exactly. And even if it's not COVID related, come first of the month, you can get a $2,000 microphone for $1,200. And then, but you can sell it for, you just have to wait. They just want the cash. So, and then I have pawn shops that call me and, I'll go in and buy packaged stuff from them.
Dude, good for you, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hustle. I mean, it's not, I mean, I was on the road so much that I kind of slowed that, but it's just a hustle I picked up. And I like
but if
it.
it's a hustle, you can make $5,000 a year out of it. Ain't that,
Exactly. Better than Uber, for me at least.
Yeah, right. No, I totally get that, man.
And if you love the piece, you also, you wind up
good gear.
Yeah, you got good gear.
Good for you.
If it all goes to shit, you got, you have a Neumann microphone, you have, synthesizers that's really cool. You have, so it's kind of like you don't lose either way.
Good, man. That's great. Any low points? Tell me some of the low points or dark periods you've had to deal with in life, and how'd you get through them? Yeah,
I think, low points are just a consistent thing. I think you go high, you go low all the time. The ending of that recording company was low, but not low because I was getting married. Selling my house and moving to Kentucky, and COVID is a low, and all my tours canceled, and releasing a record is low, but I'm also moving to Kentucky and selling a house. So I really have a hard time looking at saying something from a distance is a low point, because with whatever it is, it actually became, for me, I should only speak for myself, there is so many positives that have come out of it. And I remember I was talking to a good friend of mine, and he was talking about rehab. He's from Pennsylvania. I met him out in California, and he said, when I got to rehab, I lost everything that I ever owned, and it was the worst. I said, this is the worst. This is the end. This is the worst. And what he'd come to discover is that was actually the best moment in his life. So I don't really go through my low points like that. I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you if that recording thing didn't work. I wouldn't have had the conversation of this record. So low points they don't play right now for me.
Good for you, man. You talked about a couple of, bunch of times about sobriety and trying to help people. Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I've been sober for a long time. So, and it's a big part of my life. I mean, helping young guys or older guys. So, and it's just kind of a way of life for me at this stage. It's kind of given me a connection to God that I didn't grow up with. It gave me principles to live by, and things that it just kind of gave me my life. It gave me my ability to kind of process things through different perspectives and not be so self-centered all the time. I mean, I'm really self-centered, but at least have at least can feel it, and know that it's not right. So, I remember when I first sobered up, I had to ask myself about music. It's such a selfish pursuit, being a singer or a songwriter or an artist. It feels like that. And when you do music, you want success to kind of prove that you are, good, legitimate, or and also to kind of rub it in people's faces. Secretly, that's what most people want to do. And
I think if you've had a lot of naysayers, I don't necessarily think that that's an abnormal response or selfish response. I think it's an appropriate response, especially as a young person.
Right. And I think as young people, it's really kind of, there's an energy there too. So but I will say this, you twist yourself of what you're really doing. So instead of just finding the music like we've been talking about in this sort of meditative state where time becomes elastic and you're inside, you're not thinking about how you're going to get there. You're just living music. You're living your art. You're living whatever it is. What happens is that you get a lot of thoughts going on that are saying, you need to be this, or you need to be that, or, this says this about you, or this says that about you. And that's where it becomes all consuming and very dangerous. I mean, if you look at people that are really successful, you've heard stories like Van Morrison, and I mean, I could name them, But, you know, if you just let that go unchecked, it can be bad. And I remember when I got sober, I had to ask myself if this is something I really wanted to do, because it felt like it was all consuming and I couldn't really get to my core. And so after a while, I started thinking about music, and I realized, and this is the way I live with music. And this is why I said, like, when I wake up on the Allman Betts bus and I'm writing songs, I ask myself, how can I be of service to this situation? Because music is a real service to our community, to maybe it's only two people that are in the audience, or maybe that Desires a Despair song, great example. I don't want to play that every night. But I do, because there's somebody out there. And whenever I play it, somebody comes up and tells me a story about their brother, about themselves, about something. And so I realized that it's a service to give to people. And that if I can live with that, if I can live in that, then I can find those moments of elastic time where I'm writing and I'm free from all the kind of burden of what am I doing, you know, what am I trying to say? And I'm putting something together that when I perform it, somebody, maybe the whole audience, maybe just a couple people, are going to have a reaction where they feel like they're not alone. And so that's what, you know, early sobriety gave to me once I gave up maybe the music idea. It gave me a sense of like purpose inside of it. And I've lived that way ever since. And I always tell this, I mean, I remember one time I was playing in like Raleigh, North Carolina. It was a pizza joint. It was a shit gig. Raining. I'd driven probably 6 hours to get there.
Oh
going,
my God.
What the hell am I doing? Like, there was even a latte machine in there. And I sit down, I have to set up my own, you know, my own PA thing. And I sit down and open up my guitar, and I look up, and two people drove 16 hours to see me play. And they were Marty Stuart fans. I met them on the Marty Stuart tour.
Oh my God.
And I realized, like, that's an amazing feat for somebody to take that effort to connect with me.
That is incredible.
Yeah, but it happens all the time. I mean, you'll be playing, and I'll be playing in like someplace in Northern California. Somebody will show up and be like, you know that Fade Away song? That's the best song I've ever heard. I'm like, who are you? Like, you know, like, where'd you come from? Like, I didn't know. But they drove 3 hours just to come see me play a record store to tell me that. And that says something about what it does.
What you're doing, yeah, and how it's affecting somebody.
And so it's 1 million people, it's 5 people. You don't judge it on that, as long as you just keep falling forward in a lot of ways. You know, you just, if you get wrapped up and desperately need more than what you're getting, then it's not going to work. But if you just keep on saying that I've got everything I need right now, you can see the miracle of doing music and doing whatever it is you do. I mean, it doesn't really, you know, I hate it when people are like, yeah, I mean, the art, you know. It's like, yeah, you know what I mean? So I think it's
So you hear that sometimes, you know.
Yeah. But I don't take it like that, but it is amazing that people connect.
Yeah, and you've been sober. I mean, I'd like to, could tell how long you've been sober, because you've done a great job. You got sober.
Yeah, I got sober when I was 18. I'm 41 now.
Yeah, man,
so
man, I'm proud of you for that, man. I mean, that's 18. I mean, that's why you're like, you must have, your antenna must have, like, I know you're into personal development, but I could see you've worked that, because your antenna's up pretty good, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what you were like before, but you have a very good level of awareness about you now.
Well, I think LA gave me a lot, because it settled me down into one place for long enough. And there's 20 million people there, but you get a community of younger guys your age. And, you know, we're all trying to make the world a better place, like Michael Jackson says, but we're just trying to, you know, do the best we can. So I think that, you know, it's just the environment that I found myself in that has that has allowed that, because there are people that don't engage the process, that maybe, I mean, it's been just part of my life, so I don't know, you know, it's just spiritual development is a key to my existence. I need to always be, I'm always growing, but I need to really strive for that, because it's been a solution to almost everything. Whether I get scared about moving back to Kentucky, COVID, or, you know, I got to let go and kind of get in the stream of, pack stuff into the stream of life, and not always be competing, you know, or always be scared, or think that, you know, or think that there isn't enough, you know. I mean, you know, to live your life as if life is abundant, you know, you'll see that life is abundant. As you live it as if it's scarce, you'll find reasons to find it scarce. So I mean,
I believe that.
Yeah.
Having done a bunch of both, but mostly the scares, but yeah.
And I'm not sitting here going namaste. That's the way I live. I mean,
no, it's an ongoing battle, man. It's an ongoing, you know, it's like it's just basically, how do you respond to stress?
Yeah.
You know, and so every time you respond to stress, that's when you're faced with that. Okay, here's my choices. I could do this, or I could, you know, rely on my faith, or rely on, you know, the world, whatever. But it's all a choice.
Yeah. And I think, I hope that my music, one thing that I've always found kind of consistent in my music is there's a hope, and there's an investigation, and there's a hope. None of my songs end with "you're screwed." And it's almost a subconscious thing, but they all start with like, this feels,
you're screwed.
They don't all start. Yeah, you're screwed. So it's been a way for me to have that sort of constant conversation with whatever spirit I'm talking about, and kind of come to some sort of blueprint. And yeah, I mean, and it just, so and you know, it's crazy is when I found music, that's what it did for me. It gave me this, it was like an escape pod. It was like a universe inside of the universe. It was like a parallel universe, you know, that stretched as far as you can see, and very spiritual, and everything kind of related to it. You know, it's like you could find things in there, and I've been chasing that ever since. I mean, literally, I haven't sat around and like learned scales. I've just chased that I think, you know, the music is. It's just this sort of parallel universe that interplays with us. And now I sound like Kenny Vaughan. But that interplays with us. And, you know, in the antenna.
No, I could actually follow you, so not yet.
So it's like an antenna that connects.
That's funny, man. Hey, tell me your top 3 Desert Island discs, just for right now.
Yeah, John Prine, Tom Waits' Rain Dogs, and Prince Purple Rain.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I could keep going, but
Very
I mean,
cool,
those are top of mind.
Tell me, this is a tough one, man. What do you like most about yourself?
Well, I think I've showed that I'm persistent. I think that's a good quality, and I think I've showed that I have the willingness to accept if I'm wrong, although it might take me a little bit. That I'm not unkind for extended periods.
You're pretty disciplined as well, I would say, no?
Not out of virtue, but out of necessity. Yeah. So, you know, a prayer life or a meditation practice is not because, you know, it's not because I'm trying to, you know, get to the underworld. It's just like, if I don't do it, I'm a total asshole.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. No, but that's but it's discipline.
Yeah.
It's discipline, man. It takes discipline.
But life has disciplined me, I should say. Not out of
not by nature.
Not by nature.
Yeah.
No.
How about, what would your wife say she likes most about you?
I think she likes everything about me. She's a really wonderful person. I think
That's
she
cool.
accepts
How long you been married?
We've been married 3 years,
long
but
you been
we've been together about 9.
Yeah,
or
together.
7.
That's the main one. Yeah, that's a long time, man. Congratulations. So she likes everything about you.
I would say, yeah. I mean, to travel in a van with me as I'm a musician and the performer, I would say that if you're able to do that, and I mean, come on now, I'll look at a venue or think about, she'll be like, you should play this song. I'll be like, fuck you, I ain't playing that song. So to be able to deal with that and not tell me to just, stay
Fuck
wherever
off.
I
Yeah.
am. Yeah, fuck off. I'm really blessed, but, and I realized at the end of the night that like, oh, you were right. Sorry about that. So maybe I mean, there is some qualities that I have. Yeah.
That's good, man. That's good. Something you miss from your childhood?
Well, now that I'm back in Kentucky, I'm trying to go through that. What do I miss from my childhood? I fish a lot, so I do that still.
What kind of fishing? Bass?
No, I do a lot of trout fishing. So I do a lot of fly fishing. Yeah, like I'll go tomorrow down to the Cumberland River. So cool. I don't really. I'm not the guy that. I've never been this way to think about like something that I miss. I've been kind of always moving, and maybe that's the persistent kind of just got to get somewhere. Yeah. So I don't think about that.
Most important thing your dad taught you?
Well, I mean, he probably gave it to me genetically. Kind of kindness, I think.
That's nice, man.
Yeah.
And mom?
Yeah, definitely the kind of crazy just going after something like a chihuahua on a phone. I think without kind of taking an idea and going for it, not thinking about, okay, how do I get there? Sitting back and saying, okay, this is, you got to do, A, B, and C, and then you do, but just an idea like, yeah, let's do it, and going, and then going, oh yeah, you got to do A, B, and C. So you might not do it perfectly, but if you're kind about it,
you're not paralyzing yourself with like analysis paralysis. Let me study this for 6 weeks, or to come up with step one. Yeah,
and it shows that I'm a musician. I mean, that's what that takes more than anything. It's just kind of like, let's try. And because if you thought about it, if I went through my dad's perspective with music, I would still be on A, B, and C, trying to whittle out the numbers. And if I
he's detailed, very
well, not so much detailed. It's like, well, what are you going to do? What are you, like all fathers are.
Got to have a plan.
Yeah, but that's a role that God gave for mothers and fathers. I mean, fathers are pretty kind of like that, and mothers are emotional, and I think that that's something that I've come to learn, and I play it off of each other too when I need something. But
toughest decision you had to make, or most difficult thing you had to do?
Man, like I said, I don't look at decisions. If I was in a decision, like it's difficult to make the decision to move back to California or to move back to Kentucky. But I don't really look at things like that. I don't think, like I was thinking about this actually the other day, because I thought about this decision. Like I wanted it to be kind of dramatic, right? Like whatever, like everything burns down and here I come back, And the truth is that God is super graceful on if you really look at it. Although like some people wind up getting a divorce and it seems out of nowhere. There's some things, but if you look at the person, they usually are living blind for like 15 years straight.
On something like that, totally, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't see the signs coming. But I don't. Decisions are pretty graceful for me because I'm having to go through the pain of seeing it kind of deteriorate, whatever it is as a business or a relationship or whatever, that I don't see them as difficult when they're made, or difficult when I look back. It's like my buddy Matt, when he talks about rehab. I mean, it's like, is that the worst thing that ever happened to him, or is the best thing that ever happened to him? And usually these things are, I mean, the universe is looking to give you, I know now I sound like The Secret, but the universe is looking to give you what you're thinking. And if you're thinking negative all the time, or whatever the case may be, it's going to reflect that. And how can I look at, I can tell you that this COVID or whatever it is has been awful. And it has, for my music, for my life, me. And I can tell you that, oh my gosh, I'm selling a wonderful house that I remodeled, and it's got a studio, and it's perfect, and it's got a great view, and poor me. Or I can see it as like, wow, I'm going to make a little money here, and then I get to live in Kentucky. I get to have a new experience. I get to maybe it's easier to tour from here. I can look at it that way, and that's how I choose to look at things.
I totally understand what you're saying on this, man.
Yeah,
I'm the same way. You don't want to leave things up to other. If you can decide how to feel about something.
Right, totally. It's your choice.
If it's a shitty thing, doesn't mean you have to feel shitty. You can decide to feel differently about it. Right. So I agree with you on that, man.
And especially when you're looking back on it. I mean, we got to respect. The question is what were the most difficult times for you? Now, if I'm looking back, then I have a totally different perspective. It's 2020 than if I'm in it.
When you're in it, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't quite talk about the way it is when you're in it, because that actually turns out to be untrue, to most all that fear and all the insecurities, and it's just not, if you're living in fear, you're really being dishonest towards that life continues to move on. I mean, it's like, life continues to go.
Yeah. So it's up to you how you're going to feel about this.
Yeah.
2 more questions, man. In the last 10 years, what's been the biggest change in your personality, and how much of that change has been intentional, which I assume with you, whatever change has been 100% intentional, or just a part of aging?
It's hard to know if it's a part of aging. I mean, I've become more conservative for sure when they say that age, but I don't know, which is a rare breed for guys my age to say that they're conservative. No,
I don't think so.
That's because you live in Florida, but I think you guys, everybody in California was hating on you guys for going to the beaches.
That was nutty as hell, man. I remember it was like the second or third day. Do you know who Dave Amato is?
Oh, the guitar player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dave was in town. I've known him like 2 or 3 years. He's on my show. We stay in touch. His buddy. So we go to the show, and he is a gear. I mean, he's a brilliant guy with gear. He's got like 50 Marshall Plexis. He's that guy. Yeah. So he goes to Sam Ash when he's in town, and he sees this really good deal on a Marshall little head, and he goes, Craig, I don't want to take it home. Please go buy it. It's a vintage amp. It's a great price. I'm like, Dave, I don't need another amp. I got this cabinet I'm trying to get rid of. I'd have another Delta. He goes, please. I'm like, Dave, I don't need it. So we go to the concert, right? And we're backstage. My wife and I are hanging out with him, just, bullshitting. And he goes, Ann, please tell Craig to go get this amp. It's a great amp. And she goes, Craig, if Dave's telling you to buy the amp, he knows. Why don't you buy it? I'm like, okay. Like, I didn't want to spend the money. Like, I just didn't want to, I'm not a guy that collects shit,
Right.
And I'm like, okay, if you feel that strongly about it, great, I'll buy it. No problem. I'm driving out there, and that was the day they had just shut everything down. It was like the last day the store was open, and the beaches are packed on both sides of the causeway. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm calling my wife. I'm like, you're not going to believe it. It's all young kids and probably some tourists.
Yeah.
But it was ridiculous, man. I got to be honest. I mean, it was packed. It was like, it was no regard for anything.
Yeah.
It was quite funny. But, you know, look, you have my daughter's 20.
Yeah.
She doesn't operate her life like I got to watch out for COVID.
No,
And I think, and I think that's just the youth, man.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
she's not
totally.
thinking.
If I was 20 right now, I'd be like, whatever, guys.
Yeah, right. You'd be hanging out with you, which is what she does, you know. And I just, you know, I'm not a policeman. She's 20. I've raised her already. You know, I'm not sitting there telling her, you know, she's careful around the house with us. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, what else? But this is a lot more laid back.
yeah, totally.
As far as
what has changed in me? I mean, I think.
Yeah, more conservative. What else?
Yeah, maybe. I think I'm. I don't know. Actually, like everybody, I don't know. I can't see that. I really can't. I mean, I think maybe with age, but maybe it's more. I don't know. I can't. It'd be hard for me to see it.
Fair enough. Well, ask your wife one time.
Yeah.
And most important lesson life has taught you, man. Dude, you've been eating those mints. I'm like looking all over you. I'm like, fucking.
They're Nicorettes.
Are they? God, I need one.
Yeah.
Did you quit smoking?
Years ago, but now I'm hooked on these damn Nicorettes.
It's all right, man. Better Nicorettes than.
Yeah, it's better than cigarettes.
Hell yeah.
What is the? Yeah,
what's most important lesson life has taught you?
That you need to be humble enough to seek some sort of spiritual path. That happiness resides in you letting go of a lot of that stuff, like a lot of things, and that the power is also inside of you. You know, I mean, it's not. You don't have to find it someplace else. You know, it's like it's already there, and I think that that's probably the fundamental thing that I continue to walk with, and that I've walked with for so many years, that it's proven to be true, even though I try to walk away from it, or I think, well, if I can make money here, or if I can do this, I continue to try to get outside of myself. But it's always, in the final analysis, it always comes back to that, whether you get the money or not, or whether you get write the song for the guys and they use it, or it's all those sorts of things that whether that happens or not, it's still you're living inside of yourself, you know. Dude,
that was your quote. You've had a bunch of. I always put a quote at the top of everybody's interview. You just said it. The power is inside of you. I like that, man. Yeah. Listen, let me tell people what you got going on. First of all, thank you very much. You're awesome. I really enjoyed talking to you when we first spoke, like last week or whatever. You're an awesome dude. I look forward to hanging out with you in person sometimes. You're very cool, man. I really dig your vibe. And I wish nothing but great things for you and happiness in Lexington and the rest of your life. Everybody, I would really like you to listen to Stoll Vaughan's music. His first name is spelled Stoll. It's Vaughan, as in Stevie Ray, Vaughan. His website is at stollvaughan.com. If you are inclined to buy and support his music, do that through his website. I would appreciate that. His record that just came out is called Desire Shape. It is a beautiful record, man. Like I said, I am not a guy, and I told him this. I said, listen, I'm not a guy that sits down and listens to singer-songwriter type music. I melted into this, man. This is beautiful stuff, beautiful lyrics, really good writing, great musicianship. And he's got a bunch of stuff going on all his records. You know, there's a lot of electric guitar stuff there. He's a good player. You do a really good job of like layering without overdo, you know, like your sonics, you're very good with soundscapes, man. You leave a lot of space, but you know exactly what to put in the space.
Right. That's just time. I mean, experience. Because a lot of people, when they get into recording, they have all the instruments, or they can, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. And but it just takes experience. I mean, I've made records I've never put out that have so much shit in them that when you listen to it, it's like, what's going on? You know, like, why is there a Moog synthesizer going, weow, weow, weow? You know, like,
No,
because I could.
that was noticeable. You're late, you know, you really, and it fits the music and the vibe really well. So kudos to you for that, man.
Thanks.
Also, okay. So, do you, once life comes back, he'll be touring with Allman Betts. Do you have social media you want to
Yeah,
tell
it's just
people?
Stoll Vaughan, STOLLVAUGHAN, Facebook and Instagram.
Cool.
You can get to those off my website too. And then Spotify, same thing.
Great. You have a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel, and there's a few videos for this record that are out. So yeah.
Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Also, if you are a songwriter or a budding songwriter, or you've written songs and you want an opinion on them, if you want to work with Stoll in a consulting capacity as his songwriter, go to stollvaughan.com, and he's got a contact tab there, or message him on social media. Just give him some information as to what you're looking for specifically. You know, maybe why do you think he's a fit? Whatever, just communicate so he can respond appropriately.
Yeah, and if I'm not a fit, I can turn you on to somebody who is. If you're a pop songwriter, if you a blue, you know, whatever it is that you just ask the questions. You know, because Ford, a lot of times you don't ask them.
Ford or Chevy?
I would take a. Man, I don't know.
No, that's what you said before. Remember that you said that before.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. But I mean, if I would always take a Toyota Tacoma. That's my favorite.
You know what I was thinking? I was like, what if one day you wrote one of those songs and you put like a Mercedes in there or a BMW? It would be like heresy, man. Like
totally
revolution. I would take Ford. I have an F-150. For the record, dude, is there anything?
I have a 4Runner.
There you go, man. Is there anything else that you want to pitch or promote? You got equipment. He's a man. You want to sell?
Well, there you go. It's all dependent on whether I have good stuff at the time. If you have questions about anything recording wise, I mean, I have no problem about answering that either.
But be respectful, please, of his time. Yeah. Yeah. Which my audience is. I've never heard one bad thing, unless I'm just not hearing it, but I think I'd hear it pretty quick. So this is a cool group. Thank you, man. I really appreciate everything. And please just listen to his music, man. It's that's
the thing.
Great artist. And like I said, I've listened to Love Like a Mule. I listened to The Conversation, and I listened to Desire Shape. I got The Weatherman and Hold On Through Sleep and Dreams on the queue. So I'll be looking forward to those. And thank you, brother. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate it too. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Hang on one second. Let me wrap this up. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Make sure you listen to Stoll Vaughan's music. Again, it's Stoll Vaughan, STOLLVAUGHAN. If you want to buy his music, please do that through his website, stollvaughan.com. And hit him up if you need some help or input on songwriting or song developing or anything along those lines. And most important, remember, I thought you were going to steal my line. This is my line. Most important, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice. Go play your guitar. That's yeah, man. I was like on the edge. I'm like, he's going to steal my line. Be nice. Go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everyone. I am out. Stoll, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you all.